Today, we're going to talk about a revolution that promised freedom, but, well, forged a very different path. And we'll see how, decades later, its legacy is being challenged by the very people it claimed to liberate.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Picture this. It's 1979. A massive popular uprising in Iran ends 2,500 years of monarchy. This was a seismic event, something that completely reshaped the entire Middle East.
But, flash forward nearly 50 years, and you hear this strange echo from the past on the streets. The chants aren't for the Islamic Republic. No, they're calling on an ancient, pre-Islamic history, a time of different kings and a totally different identity.
So, to really get what's going on now, we have to rewind. We've got to go back to the beginning, to the promise of 1979, and the strange bedfellows who made it all happen.
The thing about this movement that's just wild is how diverse it was. This wasn't one unified group. It was this big and, as it turns out, really fragile coalition. You had secular liberals, Marxist guerrillas, conservative clerics, nationalists, students, you name it. Their one and only goal they agreed on, get rid of the Shah. What came next? Well, that was a different story.
And the man they all rallied behind? This guy, Ayatollah Khomeini. From his exile, he became this incredibly powerful symbol of moral opposition. He was a master of being vague, He kind of let every group project their own hopes onto him, all while, as this quote says, keeping his real plans completely under wraps.
And you could just feel the regime starting to crack. In a final, desperate TV address, the Shah basically admitted defeat. But it was just too little, too late. People saw it as weakness, and on January 16, 1979, he got on a plane and fled Iran for good.
So the revolutionaries had won. The nation was celebrating in the streets. But that unity? It was about to completely shatter as one group moved in to grab absolute permanent power.
And this is where everything changes. Khomeini didn't replace the monarchy with a democracy. Nope. He created the world's only major theocracy, and with it, this brand new position, supreme leader. It's a job for life, with authority over every single elected official. And of course, he was the first one to take the title.
If there was any doubt about the true nature of this new system, the summer of 1988 just erased it. As the Iran-Iraq War was winding down, Khomeini issued a secret fatwa. That's a religious order that unleashed a horrific wave of mass executions against political opponents who were just sitting in prisons.
The regime's brutality was just laid bare. These so-called death commissions were set up in prisons all across the country, and in just a few months, thousands of prisoners were killed. Their bodies were dumped in secret mass graves that are still being found today.
So then, Khomeini dies in 1989, and suddenly, the regime has a huge problem on its hands. How do you transfer absolute, lifelong power? The decision fell to this group, the Assembly of Experts.
The whole process that followed was, questionable to say the least. See, the Constitution said the next supreme leader had to be a top-ranking cleric, a marja. Ali Khamenei, he wasn't one. But then a very powerful ally stood up and claimed that Khamenei had privately endorsed him. So Khamenei gets elected, temporarily. And only after he's elected do they go back and amend the Constitution to fit his lower qualifications. They literally changed the rules of the game after they'd already picked the winner.
And for the next few decades, the consequences of this iron-fisted theocracy would hollow out Iran from the inside and basically cut it off from the rest of the world.
Corruption just became part of the system. It was rampant. Just take this one case, I&D Bank. It managed to register a loss of 90 trillion tomans. That's a number 56 times its entire registered capital. Think about that. It's an insane figure that just shows you how deeply broken things had become.
Now, on the world stage, the regime tried to paint a very different picture. Officially, their foreign policy was framed in these really lofty terms: a peaceful mission to export spirituality and awaken other nations. That was the official story anyway.
But what did exporting the revolution look like in practice? Well, it was a whole different story. This policy turned Iran into a major sponsor of international terrorism. In fact, Khomeini created the modern Islamic theology of suicide bombing. It fueled conflicts across the region and left Iran completely isolated.
Which brings us to today. A whole new generation is rising up, and they're not looking to reform the revolution of 1979. They are rejecting it completely by looking much, much further into Iran's past.
And you can see this in the symbols they're using. It's like everything from 1979 has been turned on its head. Where the 1979 revolution rallied around Khomeini and an identity tied to the global Islamic community, the Ummah, today's protesters are rallying around Cyrus the Great, the ancient founder of the Persian Empire, and a very distinct national pre-Islamic identity.
And the regime? They are terrified of this. This reclaiming of history is a direct threat to their entire identity. It's so sensitive that on what people call Cyrus Day, which is an unofficial holiday, the authorities literally block all the roads leading to his tomb just to stop people from gathering. They are trying to erase a history that just refuses to be forgotten.
And this is why it matters so much. For activists like the Nobel laureate Narges Mohammadi, Cyrus isn't just some guy from a history book. He's this powerful cultural symbol. He represents the very ideals of tolerance, justice, and freedom that the 1979 revolution promised, but, in the eyes of so many, just utterly failed to deliver.
When you look at the whole story, it's really a powerful warning, isn't it? It's about how a people's hope can be twisted into an instrument of oppression. A revolution that started with so much desire for freedom ended up creating a new kind of authoritarianism. And the question that's left is, what will it take for this new generation to finally reclaim that original promise?